Welcome, Dr. Ellen. It's a treat to have you here today.
Thank you, Kimberly. I am looking forward to our conversation. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And congrats on your book, Rock Your Midlife. I loved it. I read that right after it came out. And so, talk to us a little bit about how I want to talk about the book, but first, I want to talk about how you became known as the Midlife Whisperer.
So initially, I was going by the Grow and Glow coach, and I was at a meeting for women entrepreneurs, and I was really thinking about what is it that I do? And it was just basically a divine download. It just hit me like midlife whisperer. And I was shocked that nobody had the moniker because you think about the cat whisperer, the dog whisperer. And it was interesting because there was someone there called the jewelry whisperer. And I thought, that's what I do. I help women to really connect with their souls, connect with what lights them up, with what brings them joy, to feel really good in their skin. And so that was a moniker that really resonated with me. And I think it resonates with women, like a one-stop shop for all your midlife needs, whether that's body, mind, heart, spirit, or relationships.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's a wonderful moniker. And so, tell us about the 7 steps from your book, Rock Your Midlife.
So the 7 steps, the first one is to know yourself. And this is so important because during midlife, as we're going through menopause, literally our bodies and our brains are changing. And I find so many midlife women, so many of the women that I work with, that lost touch with who am I really? I had a conversation with a woman the other day and I said, if you had 3 wishes, what would you wish for? And she looked at me and she said, I have no idea. So if you want to rock your midlife, you've got to know yourself. What do you love? What do you dislike? What brings you joy? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? Who do you like to hang out with? So really knowing yourself, even going back to when you were in kindergarten and when the teacher went around and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And knowing what was that thing that lit you up and revisiting that and also visiting your future self. Who do you want to become and how do we bring that to where you are right now? And so that's the first step, is knowing yourself. The second step, which I think if I had to do over again, I might have made that the first, is really loving yourself. And for me, this really came to the surface when I learned self-compassion. I used to have kind of the fierce triad, right? I had the self-critic, the people pleaser, and the perfectionist, right? A lot of us recognize those three. And I found self-compassion because I was looking for a dissertation topic for my PhD in psychology to help women feel better about their bodies and themselves. And I was fortunate enough to connect with Kristen Neff, who's the pioneer in self-compassion, started practicing it myself, became a mindful self-compassion teacher. So the second step is loving yourself. And I feel like loving yourself is about practicing self-compassion, which is really about treating yourself like a good friend, building your self-worth, knowing I'm worthy right now just because I'm this beautiful human, and also this self-care piece. So self-love is second. The third one is energizing yourself. We are energetic beings. We literally come from sunlight. It's not just woo, it's really quantum physics, but also knowing we either eat plants or we eat animals that eat the plants. We're made of light. And so energizing yourself is really fourfold. It's about eating the right diet, which becomes even more important at midlife. Whole food, plant-based, plenty of protein, less processed foods, reducing your stress. Stress is super important to deal with at any point in life, but particularly at midlife, if you're transitioning through menopause, a cortisol, which is the hormone of fight and flight, and estrogen both come from the same precursor, pregnenolone. So if you're stressed out all the time and there's already estrogens going up and down, you need to work on the stress. It's so important. We know that all of diseases are really based on inflammation, and stress is all about inflaming the body to get ready for that saber-toothed tiger. So stress reduction. And it's also about working on your sleep, which is one I'm always working on. And then movement, finding joyful movement. So that's energizing yourself so you just feel energized and good. And the fourth one is to reprogram your brain. So there's something called neuroplasticity, which I'm sure you talk about all the time, where you literally can change the structure of your brain by working with your thoughts, really promoting the life-giving beliefs and thoughts that are going to help you move forward in your life and paying attention to the not so positive ones, right? Maybe questioning those, but really elevating your thoughts. And as your brain structure changes, your thoughts start to change. So there's this beautiful loop. And then now I'm even learning more about the microbiome and how the vagus nerve plays a role, and actually what you eat actually affects how you think. There's this connection between the brain and the body. So nutrition plays a role. And diet plays a role in how you think, and how you think plays a role in how you eat. So this is reprogramming your brain. And then the fifth one is in empowering yourself. And this is so important because after you know yourself, so you know, I know what I want to do, right? And you love yourself enough to go do that thing. And then you have the energy to do it. And you've been working on your mindset by reprogramming your mind. It's time to go and jump off that cliff, do that thing, whether that is traveling, writing a book, starting a side hustle, getting a new job, meeting the love of your life, finally taking control of your health, empowering yourself, finding the power from within to do that thing you really want to do. And then there's rehabbing your relationships, because what happens is as you start to change, you start to become, I like to say, I used to say butterfly, but now I say dragonfly because we can talk more about that. But dragonflies, I think, are way cooler. The metamorphosis is faster and more fun than the butterfly, but you become that dragonfly. But the people in your life still see you as that caterpillar and nymph. And you're like, no, I'm flying. I'm doing all these things. And they're like, no, you're still a caterpillar. You're still a nymph, because people see things as they are, not as they truly are. We're all coming from things from different perspectives. And the danger here is they can pull you back into their reality. I mean, especially if you've got those people pleaser tendencies and be like, okay, I want to do these things. And they're like, you want to move to Costa Rica? That's insane. That's cuckoo puffs, right? But you're like, no, my heart is telling me to move to Costa Rica. And so you've got to really rehab those relationships through a combination of setting boundaries, learning to say no, and through something called through changing the way that you get your needs met, nonviolent communication. And then the seventh one is enlightening yourself, really understanding that you are a soul having a human experience. And I think that's something that comes up a lot at midlife, when we start to realize that we have more time behind us and in front of us. And we start to make that spiritual connection and really understand I'm all human, right? I'm this animal, I'm this human, I'm in this embodied experience, but I'm also divine. I also have this connection with God's source spirit. And it's really making that connection. The cool thing about the steps is you can start anywhere. So you don't have to start at one and work your way through. I usually recommend, when I'm working with my clients, the self-compassion, self-love has got to be the umbrella over all of it. Because when you love yourself, you stop doing those things that insult your soul, and you start attracting what is truly in your best interest. You have that energy to love yourself. And so that's super powerful. So I always tell people, make self-compassion your superpower.
Love Dr. Kristen Neff's work. It's so beautiful. Yeah. And I like your idea of, okay, maybe I should have moved that to number one. They're all so great, though. It's hard to give them a hierarchy.
Thank you.
So let me ask you too, before we started recording, you mentioned a few kind of big changes that have happened for you in midlife. And midlife does tend to have that part of the experience of lots of changes, shifts, even in identity and understanding and interests. And so I'm curious for you, what are the big things that you have observed in yourself and that you think listeners might appreciate learning more about with regard to navigating the midlife experience?
I think that I take where I'm at in life very seriously, because again, this issue of I only have so much time. There's a sense of urgency where it's almost, you just sense, okay, I'm running out of time and my soul came here for something. So there's this real push to get like serious about life. But at the same time, I have lightened up so much. I feel like a little kid again. I'm 62 and I'm biking, I'm swimming, I'm jumping on a trampoline, I'm traveling. I have an amazing man in my life who I absolutely adore. And we just are having, it's so much fun. No one ever told me that midlife, you could feel so good in your body, because we have this vision of what happens and this sort of dread of aging. But if you take care of yourself, you feel amazing. But then there's also this sense of legacy. What am I leaving? What am I here to do? Like, I don't need to work anymore. I could retire, but I choose to work because I really want to change the way that we approach midlife. I want people to see it not as this time to dread, but that we get this whole second adulthood where if we really follow those 7 steps, we know ourselves, we love ourselves, we take care of our body, we reshift our minds, we do all of those things, we can have such a rich, incredible experience. And there truly is what's called a U-shaped happiness curve. So I know myself, my U-shaped happiness curve totally, it dipped. Like my 50s were tough. You've got the tweens and the teens. I had a difficult marriage. I was not happy in my relationship. I had the empty nest and I had the divorce and then I had blindness. I lost my sight in my right eye, my retina detached. I had cataract surgery and then my retina detached and I literally went blind. And so there was a lot of coming to God moments of figuring out, oh my gosh, who am I, going through deep points of fear and coming out the other end. That's this piece that I'm working on now called dragonflying, where you feel lit up and free. You realize that you're not a victim. I think so often women at midlife feel like all of these things are happening to me, but these things are happening for you so that you can grow, so that you can develop. So, yeah, my perspectives really changed. I never imagined in a million years that I could ever be this happy. And I never imagined that I would be living super remote on an island in Vermont on Lake Champlain, like pretty much away from stores and things. I always thought of myself as this like sophisticated chick who'd be like living in New York City. And I just met this man and I moved into his place and I couldn't be happier. So I guess my perspective has just changed on just how bright and beautiful life can be and how much you can love yourself with all of your flaws and quirkiness and love those things too. And that this second adulthood is truly the richest time of life.
What would you say to listeners who are struggling? They're in this second half of life and it's just not going very smooth. So for you, even of recognizing I need to leave this relationship, or earlier, again, before you started recording, you mentioned a diagnosis, right? So there's all these things that come up. And so how are you learning best to navigate the challenges?
The biggest shift I would suggest right off the bat is change your perspective from I am struggling to I am persevering. I find so many women at midlife are addicted to struggle. We're also addicted to the stress and the anxiety because your brain isn't interested in you being happy and enlightened and fulfilled. It wants to keep you safe. And so writing that book, doing that traveling, meeting that love of your life, and even figuring out how I'm going to be healthy. All of these things, your brain's like, no, don't go there. It's much safer for you to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and have a threesome with Ben and Jerry's. That's safe. That's known. Our brains are like, I think we're old enough to remember records, right? There's grooves. And so, first of all, change the perspective to I'm not struggling. I'm persevering. Surround yourself with people, with media, with ways to support yourself. Get yourself a coach. Find someone who really understands, who can push you a little bit. Do something to push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, whether that's just, you know what, I'm just going to take that pottery class. I'm just going to do that karaoke, or I'm going to maybe get an Instagram account and talk about what's going on in my life. I'm going to do that thing that I'm scared of doing, because every time you step outside your comfort zone, you expand, you grow. And so just got to get away from that struggle mindset to tell yourself, I'm persevering. And I also really love connecting with your future self. So I do a meditation with all of my clients where I have you envision your future self, meet yourself 10 years down the road, then bring it back to the present moment and think, how am I? Everything is energy, right? So how do I bring this energy now? I met this amazing woman. Like, how do I dress like her, eat like her, move through my day with the mentality of the woman that I want to become? I would say also, too, just lighten up and have some fun. There is no expiration date on having fun. Get out that hula hoop. Get those finger paints out. And I think that creativity piece, rediscover what makes you feel alive. And I think also, we get in this sort of purpose loop. We feel like purpose has to be this big thing, like this career, right? You could just bake the best freaking cupcakes on the block and bring them to your elderly neighbors, or do some kind of volunteer work. It's like part of our purpose in life is to enjoy our life and to be present in our life. So I think we stay in struggle. We think this idea of purpose has to be this big thing, and we just need the little breadcrumb. So just do one thing today and every day that brings you joy.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder. It is. It's just, I like to talk about glimmers, right? That it was coined by Deb Dana, this idea of like, how do we find the glimmers in everyday life, right? Because we're trained to notice what's wrong. So, how do we shift that and really notice what's right? I'm curious with your career trajectory, because it sounds like you've had quite the interesting journey. So, can you enlighten us with A to B, where you
Oh,
are now,
sure. Um,
CD?
yeah, tigers are my power animal, so I guess I haven't had a lot of lives. I went to Ivy League and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought maybe pre-med, but I am incredibly squeamish. There's no way I could cut into somebody, stab someone. So that was like, that's not happening. So I went to Wharton, I went into business, I got to New York City, and I was a corporate. I was a corporate buyer for retailing. I love clothing and fashion and got there, hated it. Thought like this is going to be the glamorous life I'm going to love. And so I rejiggered a lot of things and I became a registered dietitian because I was obsessed. Honestly, it's hard to admit it. I had an eating disorder, anorexia before people knew what eating disorders were. It was like being skinny was good. And I thought, well, I'm just going to help people be skinny. So I became a dietitian. And of course, and I thought, well, if I know everything about food, then that's going to help my own food issues because I was obsessed about being thin and what I was eating. Of course, it only made it worse. So I was a dietitian. And then my ex-husband and I became celebrity chefs in the 90s. We were the cooking couple. So I was back when the TV Food Network was in and celebrity chefs were all the rage. And that was a hoot. That was a lot of fun. He was a chef and I was a dietitian and we were in love. That was fun. And then it was actually killing our marriage because working together. So we stopped that. And then I became a personal fitness trainer. And that's when like really the body dysmorphia, the eating disorders really hit a peak. I was like an alcoholic working in a liquor store. And I talk all about this if you want to read more in my book, Rock Your Midlife. But I hated my body. And I was that personal fitness trainer. I was in my 40s. And of course, I was like totally cut up, six pack, the guns, the whole thing, working out 4 to 6 hours a day with all my clients. And I was also getting my PhD and I had kids that I was raising. So I'm going through menopause before we were even talking about it. So I was a mess. And I had undiagnosed Hashimoto's disease. And then I discovered self-compassion because I started doing research on body image in women, realized that the media tells us that we need to be thin and we need to be young. And the most important thing about us is our looks. And if we aren't those two things, then we're not worthy. And I was like, oh my God, the media has taught us this. So I did a big 180, realized that self-compassion was really the answer for so many issues that women were having, including body image. And now instead of starting with punitive diets and movement, exercise, a lot of cardio, I teach women self-compassion. And then that leads into intuitive eating. So that took me to a completely different phase of and then through becoming a trainer as well, I also became a coach. So I'm a board certified health and wellness coach. So I brought coaching in, got my PhD in psychology. And then let's see, then I got divorced. So that was a whole other, oh my God, like that was a big scare. It was me. I blew up my marriage because I didn't want to spend the next adulthood with my ex-husband. It was not working anymore for me. And I wanted something very different. That was very scary. And then I went blind, as I mentioned. And so the retinal detachment, which was a lot of facing fear, which taught me a lot about faith. And let's see, where else have I been? Became the midlife whisperer, really coaching, wrote my book, which I think brings me to the present. And now I'm in an incredible relationship. If you're listening and you're looking, I can't recommend spiritual singles high enough. I just absolutely adore my man. We live on a mini farm in Vermont and then also bought a home in Costa Rica. Went to Costa Rica for my 60th birthday and fell in love with the country, bought a house. And I didn't actually mention too that in all of that as well, got breast cancer. So that was a big shift where it was not on my vision board. I'm the healthiest person I know and I have no family history. And it happened on my son's 21st birthday, the day Neptune and Jupiter had a cazimi. And I was just shocked, but I found out I have a BRCA mutation. So I have a 50% chance of breast cancer as opposed to most women have a 13%. So that was huge. That really taught me a lot about the 7 steps. So if you're listening, those 7 steps work on so many levels, really needed to double down on the self-compassion, really needed to work with the empowerment because I didn't want to do all of the things that my oncological team wanted me to do. I was always looking through this lens of step 1, what are your core values, which for me are the self-compassion, the well-being, wellness, and also spirituality. And I didn't want to do anything that my future 80-year-old self would say, you've got neuropathy now and you can't walk comfortably. So I didn't do everything. I did a lot of holistic things. I think I got through it. Also had my ovaries out because of the BRCA mutation. So it's been a hell of a ride.
Oh, yeah.
But through it all, that's another thing is even the breast cancer, I navigated it with joy. I said, there's two ways to look at this. I can say this is a trudge and this sucks, which at times it really did. But it was like, okay, I'm going to show the world that it's not your mother's breast cancer. It's super treatable if it's caught early, easy to diagnose, and it's going to make me stronger. I'm going to learn things. And the main thing I learned was I really needed, we talked about the perfectionist, the self-critic, and the people pleaser. I needed to get rid of my workaholic. I was a serious workaholic because I was so dissatisfied with my work, with my life, personal life, that work brought me so much satisfaction. So I was always looking to work, but I didn't have a healthy relationship with my work. And particularly, what it's like to be on screen, on camera, and on Instagram. And I just was not enjoying it. And I learned something called human design. And I realized I was frustrated. I'm a generator. So I was frustrated rather than satisfied. So about a year ago, I just stepped away and took a hiatus, became a yoga instructor, and now I'm back.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Yeah. What a journey.
And it's
Wow.
only getting started. So now I'm working on
Yeah.
this whole dragon flying methodology, which I'm super pumped about.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And it's so interesting to hear just the threads woven throughout and also to see where you are now and feeling good about kind of relationship. And I love what you said about how working so much to avoid, right, a personal life that wasn't feeling good. So I was curious, A, how you shifted that. And I do recall you talking about it in Rock Your Midlife. So I'd love for you to share with our listeners. If anyone else is, oh, I just feel busy all the time, whether or not it's work or just life admin, but it's, are we keeping ourselves busy to avoid something, right? So if you could speak to that, I think our listeners might really appreciate.
Sure. I would say that my typical client comes to me and she is very defined by her work. And then she's looking at retirement and she has absolutely no idea what's next. And I think there's this busyness that we live in this hustle culture that talks so much about productivity and self-worth based on what you produce. And so I think part of it is to take some things off your plate. And that's where your human design came in for me as a generator. My strategy is wait to respond to things that really light you up. And so we fill our lives with busyness because we're a little scared of if I take things off my plate, who am I if I'm not this worker bee? My work defines who I am, and it can be very scary to take things off. But then you do that, and then you can sit and go, let's see what shows up. But it is this addiction and it is this sense of worthiness based on what I produce. And so I'm here to say, and I'm sure you agree with me, you are worthy. Your worthiness has nothing to do with your bank account, your weight, what you look like, what you're producing, what your resume says. There is this innate worth that's so much deeper about just your humanness, your soul. And so for me, it took me a while. I really knew I needed to stop. And I'm an astrology buff as well. I love astrology and human design and the gene keys. And so Venus was transiting through Leo, which is my rising sign. And I tried to get off the addiction to media. It's this addiction, if you're an influencer, a lot of us are, and I'll admit it, addicted to the likes and in growing and blowing up and all of those things. And then I realized, you know what? When I learned human design, I am so frustrated with what I'm doing and the way I'm showing up. And the only way for me to save myself and reinvent myself was to step away. And so my bestie was like, it's time for you to become a yoga instructor. So I needed something to do. And I've always loved yoga. I've been doing yoga since I was 5. And so I pretty much shut it down. Fortunately, financially, I could do it. And I studied yoga and I went back to Costa Rica and I taught yoga. And then when I came back to Vermont, I was like, okay, I feel ready to show up in a new way that is more about serving and inspiring women. And that's when this dragon flying idea came to me, which I'm really lit up about it as a new metaphor for transformation at midlife. But to answer your question, it's yes, we have to step away from that addiction to busyness, which can be really scary. And we have to make sure self-care isn't about just the manis and the petties and pouring a glass of wine and watching Netflix. Although I do love my Bridgertons and my Sex and the City reruns. But it's about what's making you feel whole. That's where that self-compassion piece comes in, where you're looking at self-care as when I'm struggling, when I'm stressed, what do I need right now? And what are those self-care practices? But by taking everything off my plate, things started showing up. Pottery showed up and handpan. And I wanted to actually show my handpan. So this showed up in my life.
Ah,
Pan. But if you take things off your life, things that truly bring you joy show up, including people and work opportunities. But if your plate is full, it's if you go to a all-you-can-eat buffet and you love sushi and you fill your plate up with, oh, I don't know, with spaghetti and meatballs, right? There's no room for the sushi or the beautiful dessert. So you've got to like empty your plate, ask the universe to bring you some new things.
that's such a good reminder. And as you mentioned, self care, right, Manny Petty, not being all of that, of course. But I'm wondering, what are some of your daily rituals? Clearly, it sounds like yoga, but you have so many interests. But what are your daily rituals that really help to keep you grounded?
Yeah. So my gosh, I do a lot. I really, and I have to say, if you're listening and you're struggling with loving your body and loving yourself, you can totally flip the switch on that. I absolutely love my body, the 37 trillion cells. So I take incredible care of this wonderful instrument that I get to live in. I wake up, and sleep has been one of my most important things in terms of self-care rituals. That's the thing that I've been working on the most in terms of my wellness. And I've just started to do tongue scraping, which I think is
Yeah.
amazing to get the toxins that I'm really working on that microbiome. So I do the tongue scraping. Sometimes I do oil pulling. I do a ritual called the Five Tibetans, which takes me about 10 minutes. And it's these very quick things that I do, a little bit of tapping to get my lymph going in the morning. If the weather is good, like this time of year, I usually walk around the property barefoot and just really take in nature. We hear this all the time about be in nature, but really be in nature. Like when the birds are singing and they're happy, your nervous system feels this grounded sense of everything is okay. That's another quick tip. Remind yourself you're safe when you're feeling anxious. But so I ground and walk around a little bit. Lately, I have been doing 10 minutes of meditation, pretty loose. Sometimes I'll work a little bit with the Akashic records. I might do a self-compassion meditation. And then I also am a huge a fan and practitioner of heart math. I don't know if you know about heart math, but it's a wonderful, deceptively easy way to synchronize your thoughts, your emotions, and your heart. Very scientifically proven, super easy. Just basically locating the area in your heart, breathing into your heart, finding a simple rhythm that's a little slower and deeper than usual, and maybe sending that heart energy out. And also love just bringing in some light, maybe doing a little chakra clearing. So that's about an hour. Might do a little bit of journaling as well. So that's my morning ritual. And then I pretty much always take a walk. I have a beautiful border collie, and she and I get to take a beautiful walk. When I'm in Costa Rica, it's first thing in the morning because it's hot. So that's a self-care ritual that's a non-negotiable. I would say my diet is a self-care ritual that is non-negotiable. I eat a whole food, plant-based diet. But you know what? I also have fun. Like my man and I biked to the harbor restaurant the other day and we had a nacho platter. And so I'm not like 1,000% like you have to eat this way. So eating's a big piece of it. I would say also to spending time with friends. So like tomorrow I'm having a date with my bestie, going to a yoga class, doing a little bit of girl time shopping, having lunch. So I do a lot of things. I do Reiki as well. So I practice Reiki on myself and others. And just always adding in, I would say my handpan is another self-care ritual. It's a vibrational. So it's really raised my vibration because you become one with the instrument and you feel that vibration down to your cells. Also been started learning pottery, which I absolutely love. So that's another self-care thing of working with my creativity and being grounded and present in my life. And then just little, I would say, self-care snacks throughout the day. So when I start to notice that maybe I'm anxious or stressed, instead of my old MO would be like to have a lot of caffeine and push through, go back outside and take a walk, or I'll jump on the trampoline for 10 minutes, or I'll put on some music and dance, or I'll get a hug from my man. So just doing, and gardening, I would say too, is another sort of self-care ritual. I just love to listen to something on tape, whether it's your podcast or a book, and just pulling weeds. It's just really cathartic.
I love this. This is great. This sounds ideal. I love it. Thank you for sharing. And so your bestie, since you're in a rural area, so did she travel? Does she live near you now?
No, I'm about 45, 50 minutes away from Burlington. So Burlington,
Oh,
Vermont.
okay.
So I'm on an
Okay.
island and we have a drawbridge.
Okay.
So I live across the lake from Plattsburgh as well. So I can get in town. I go into town usually a couple times a month to meet with friends and doctor's appointments and things like that. And that's actually another thing I should mention too is tomorrow I have my first PT visit. Nothing wrong. It's just my physician. I'm really wanting to be healthy at 100. That's one of my big goals in life. And you've got to be able to squat, deadlift, and press 1 to 1.5 times your body weight, which to me sounds bananas. But he tells me it's doable because muscle mass is so important to put muscle mass on at this time of our life. So I'm like, okay, I got to go see. I know an awful lot. I've been a personal fitness trainer, but I'm like, all right, he's making a point with these people to fix you up. So I'm super excited to start some PT and get my body to even a higher level.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm like, I use my little 3 pound weights and I'm like, oh, I'm working out. And you're like twice my body weight. Oh my
One to one and a
gosh.
half times. So that would
Oh,
be,
one to one and a half.
I'm about 125. So the thought of like chest, like I can chest press
Oh my
60, but 125 and squatting 125 and pull-ups, pulling your
I
body.
all my aches, joints ache just hearing that. But that's great. I love that. I think that's a wonderful goal. But any final thoughts before I ask you my final question for today's podcast?
Yeah, I just say just make self-compassion your superpower and really surround yourself with media and whether, you're going on Instagram, whatever you're watching, that really gives you the true perspective around midlife. And I think that knowing that you're here for a reason and that we all have a mission, we all have a purpose, and step outside your comfort zone. Like yesterday, I wrote down I want my book Dragonflying to come out January of 2027. And I wrote down my whole plan of everything that needs to happen for the next 18 months. And I freaked out. I went into it's called amygdala overload. And that's going to happen. If your dream doesn't scare you and make you anxious, then you're not dreaming big enough. And it's like the Dalai Lama says, the Western women are going to save the world. The world is a mess right now. And so whether that you're growing vegetables and bringing it to your food shelf, or you're volunteering doing hospice, or you're doing something bigger, whatever that is, really, we're here to give back, be of service. It makes you feel so good. My favorite servicing these days is Girls on the Run. So I like to volunteer and help these
Uh,
amazing little ones like doing their thing. And so you're here for a reason. And just know that the second adulthood is so juicy. We get to live another 30, 40 years. That's so much life. And we are so wise. And I guess just a final thing, you said maybe one thing. Your looks are not the most important thing about you. Like I'm all about looking cute, but it's not the most important thing. And I think we focus so much on weight and on looking young because that feels, again, that known. Now, okay, I know how to diet. I'm not happy with my life, but maybe if I lose 10 pounds, then I'll be happy. Forget about losing the 10 pounds. Focus on being healthy. And if you're stuck, get help. I'm happy to speak to you. And there are other great coaches out there. And it's really worth it if you really want to reinvent yourself and rock your midlife.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So my last question, the name of the podcast, Tranquility du Jour. So how do you find tranquility in the everyday? I feel like you just walked us through your daily self-care rituals, so I may have ruined that question, but I'm sure there's other ways, knowing all the different practices that you have and the ways in which you're exploring this concept of tranquility, just more ease in midlife.
Yeah, it's resonating with the energy of light and love. So literally imagining, and I use the flower of life visualization sometimes, or just even imagining sunlight coming in or going out in the sun if you're somewhere where the sun is shining and just letting in that light. And that's something that the message that keeps coming from my intuition all the time is the energy that you're vibrating in within the moment is the most important thing. Be in that energy of tranquility as much as you possibly can. Get out of the hustle, know what that feels like. And it's very familiar and we're addicted to it. But do more things in your life that bring you into this light, love, tranquil place and see if you can superimpose them more and more into your everyday. And the more you resonate with love, the more that you are being loved, the more you're loving yourself, the more that you're understanding and feeling the energy in this physical body that you have, these trillions of cells that are all full of intelligence. That's going to bring you into that tranquil place.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ellen. It's been a treat to have you on the show.
My pleasure.